Good morning. This is Mike Stoler for the Stoler Real Estate Report. 2026, new mayor, lots of new legislation, rent freezes, all these new problems that are in the market. But is there money for real estate? According to my guest today, there's definitely money for real estate, but you have to be careful in what you do. I'm fortunate to have my friend Frank Korzekwinski, who is the Senior Executive Vice President in charge of real estate at Flushing Bank. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Happy to be back again.
Okay, would you tell me, first of all, what's happening with Flushing Bank and Ocean First Bank? I think it's an interesting thing.
Well, certainly. At the end of December, we entered into an agreement with Ocean First, and Ocean First will be acquiring Flushing Bank, and the combined institution will end up ultimately being about $23 billion in assets. A well-capitalized financial institution. We estimate our Tier 1 capital to be in excess of 13%, strong reserves. And one of the most notable parts of the transaction was Warburg Pincus, which is an investment firm known for its quality investments, joined into the transaction and invested $225 million into the deal. So it has given us tremendous street credibility. And right now we are in the process of building a plan of action to merge or combine the two institutions sometime in the near future. And we are just awaiting shareholder approval as well as regulatory approval.
And you said it'll be a $23 billion institution.
$23 billion, 71 branches, with coverage from Washington, D.C. up to Boston. So we've become a very substantial part of a very successful organization, and we're looking forward to making our contribution.
Okay, with regard to lending, what are you lending on now?
So our book of business has not changed much over the years. We are still a community-based organization providing financing for residential properties, mixed-use properties, various types of commercial properties that you find throughout your neighborhoods. We are doing apartment building lending, not so much on the rent-stabilized buildings at this point in the market. A lot of what we're doing is focused on free market rents right now, and particularly in the smaller loan transactions. Some of the larger deals that are free market based are a little bit outside of our reach. However, with the combined entity coming down the road with Ocean First, we should be able to compete more aggressively on some of the larger transactions.
Now, you have also a position in the SBA loans. Let's talk about that.
That was a wonderful addition. We recently launched a nationwide SBA program. We do have some deals going on throughout the country, not as much as we do here in New York. We are a preferred SBA lender. That team is run by our Senior Executive Vice President, Terry Kelly, in the business banking area. She's brought in a team of experienced SBA lenders that she's known for many, many years. It's really been a critical part of our community banking focus. We're able to provide specialty financing to small businesses throughout our communities and other parts of the country that may not have been able to borrow from a bank without a guarantee from the SBA.
Let's talk about the 2019 Act and the Rent Act.
The ESTPA, I believe it was. Yeah, that was it was quite a game changer in the market. Certainly has put a damper on the owners of multifamily apartment buildings that are under rent stabilization. The increases, as you know, in the last 5 years have been particularly challenging. They've made a number of changes to the tax abatement programs that they had available for owners to reinvest in their buildings. They've extended the period of time in which they could recapture their investment, and they've significantly limited the amount of investment that they can make into a building and still achieve a return over a period of time. So it's really been a very difficult situation for building owners to absorb. These buildings, many of them go back to pre-World War II. Some of the buildings in New York City, they go 1800s in some places in the Lower East Side. And a multifamily business is a capital-intensive business. It needs money to be invested constantly. If you can't reinvest, you can't maintain the building. And in order to reinvest, you need some sort of return. So we're sort of at odds as an industry with that particular act right now.
What about the new act that we're talking about, the REST Act?
So the REST Act is interesting. It's called the Rent Emergency Stabilization Act. It's in the state Senate right now, and it's up for debate this session. And what it does is it attempts to enable local municipalities throughout the state to institute rent regulations on residential dwellings with fewer than 6 units. This was also part of the COPA law, but was removed later on. These local municipalities will be given additional flexibility to utilize publicly available data to make determinations as to whether or not a housing emergency exists.
There's no question that a housing emergency does exist.
Listen, throughout the state, there is a challenge. We just do not have a sufficient supply of residential dwellings to meet the demand. That's
right.
for sure.
So continue on the rest.
So, the REST Act is really going to impact the owners of a 2, 3, 4, 5 family building throughout the state.
Weren't they protected before?
No, they were free market buildings, meaning you were able to charge a market rent for whatever the...
So right now, under REST, they're not going to be able to charge market rent?
So under REST, if it gets passed, if you have a 3-family house and you have 2 tenants in there, your apartments will be required to fall under rent regulation. So that means whatever the state ETPA or DHCR allows per year as an annual increase. As an annual increase, that's what you will be able to charge. So in many cases recently...
How can an owner operate a building that way?
It's extremely difficult, and I think if a dishwasher goes, if a sewer line gets backed up, these are very substantial expenses for someone who owns a 2 or 3 family house to have to bear without having an opportunity to recapture that cost. One of the side effects that it's going to have is it's going to make it very difficult for borrowers or investors in a 2, 3, 4, or 5 family house to obtain market rate financing. I think many financial and banking institutions are going to shy away from those transactions because they're starting to see now under ESTPA the challenges that owners have under rent regulation. So what does that do? That opens the door for less than scrupulous lenders or speculating lenders to come in and charge market rates well in excess of what's going on in the market today. That means it costs more for the homeowner to run their building, even though they can't collect enough rent to pay for the added cost of the financing or the repairs.
So how do we live with this potential rent freeze?
That's a real difficult question to ask. I think expense management is the name of the game. You need to be on your game in terms of controlling your expenses. You're going to have these peak seasons like we had this February with heat and oil consumption kind of getting out of control. I think we'll continue to see some consolidation in the industry. The days of an individual owner starting out with a 16 or a 20 family building are probably gone because you need size and scale in order to compete in this marketplace. So it's going to be very difficult going forward unless there are some changes to some of the regulations.
And what type of changes do you possibly see?
Well, I think there's some discussions out there that there's 25 or maybe 30,000 vacant apartments in New York City that are under rent regulation. The quickest way to solve that problem would be to provide some type of vehicle in which owners can invest in those 25,000 units to bring them onto market, bring them up to the condition that people would expect to live in. And it would not take years and years to solve that problem. If you're going to build a 200-unit building, whether it's in Bronx or Brooklyn, it could take 3 years just to get through the approval process, and then you have 18 to 24 months to develop.
Coupled, you have the situation if it has more than 99 units, it has to be union.
Yes, but there's another one coming out, 95X or something like that, a new tax 485X, excuse me.
Right.
So that's going to make it a much more appealing for less than 100 units, but it's still going to take a couple of years. So if the average building is 100 units, it could take 20 years to build 20,000 units. If you create an incentive for these investors to invest their own money into the building, giving them some sort of investment credit or allowance to come up to market, they can solve that problem in less than a year.
What's your thoughts about the construction market?
It's very hot right now. Anywhere you see an old shopping center that's suffering some vacancies, it's kind of being leveled and being redeveloped into some form of live-work kind of space where they have shopping, some office, and some residential dwellings. Long Island is on fire. Any piece of land that they can find, particularly in the transit hub, they're popping up 40, 50 units at a clip. It's a desirable area for banks. The returns are better than they are in stabilized properties. I think all systems are go, and there is a movement out of New York City into Westchester County, Connecticut, parts of New Jersey, and Long Island, and just a tremendous demand. So I see that being a very attractive market.
So I think it's very interesting with the Ocean First deal, and the fact that you've been there so many years and you're on the pulse. And I'd like to thank you for being here today, and best of luck on the merger.
Thank you, Mike. Look forward to seeing you again.